At the same time, nonviolence is not a normal human reaction. If someone hits you, bam, your first response, hit them back. How did you and the others in the Nashville movement and in the larger movement beyond, how did you overcome this very human impulse to strike back?
Well, when you look at the philosophy and the discipline of nonviolence, for many of us, as individuals of faith, it was in keeping with our teaching that it is better to love than to hate. It is better to be able to forgive and look at your fellow man, your fellow human being, as your brother and as your sister. So we were out to destroy a person. We were out to change that person. So, in Nashville, perhaps more than any other place, we had what we call role playing. We had social drama. We would get a group of black students and white students, and sometimes the blacks would play the role of whites, and the whites would play the role of blacks. And sometimes we would be an interracial team. And we went through drills, and we would pretend that we were pouring water on people. We did actually pour water on people, not very hot water. Like we were spitting at them. And I remember Bernard Laferre would take a cigarette or a cigar and take the smoke and blow it into someone's face, and then he would use the N-word, call the people, you nigger mama, and just call them all. And they had to sit there and take it. But that was part of discipline. And some people said, I cannot do this. I cannot take it. But we had a hardcore group of black and white students and young ministers that were prepared in Nashville during those early years to die.
Now, the Nashville student is unique in many different ways. First, that it had this interracial component because you had these exchange students going to Fisk. Secondly, that you had this deep training in nonviolence, which most people in the rest of the movement didn't. I remember when we sat in Atlanta, they just said, don't hit back. That was it. But at the same time, despite the deep training and grounding you had and these drills you'd been through, in almost all of the movement, acceptance of nonviolence for the participants was almost immediate. How do you account for that?
That was just unbelievable sense of, I don't want to do anything to mess up. I don't want to do anything to embarrass the movement. That's part of a cause. And there were people saying, I'm going to try to do it. If I cannot do it, I'll get off the stool, I'll leave. I just won't go down. I'll make a picket sign. I'll drive people to the scene, to the church, to the point to be picked up and taken downtown. But it was this unbelievable effort. Now in Nashville, I think some of the young people grew to accept nonviolence, not simply as a technique or as a tactic, but as a way of life, as a way of living. And then there was others who accepted just for during the time they were participating in the movement. But in the process, I think some grew to adhere to nonviolence more and more so as a way of life, as a way of living. We had what we call do's and don'ts, similar to what was said in Atlanta during the Atlanta movement. But we had little things like, do sit up straight, do not laugh out, do not talk back, obey your leader. And then near the end, it says something like, remember the teaching of Jesus, Gandhi, Thoreau, and Martin Luther King Jr. And at the end, it said, may God bless you. And that day when we had the mass arrest on February 27, 1960, 89 of us got arrested, and every single student had a copy of the do's and don'ts on it.
Really? What strikes me as remarkable is that so far as I know, in all of the sit-ins in all of the places all over the South, there's not a single example of a sit-in person striking back. And there's plenty of provocation, the spitting, the cursing, the yelling, the pushing, the shoving, the ketchup on your hair. How do you account for this, what is an alien philosophy to many, catching on and holding on so strong, including people who didn't have this background that you had in Nashville?
It's it's something that's very hard and maybe almost impossible to explain. But I think people became anchored in something. They became committed and dedicated. You've seen this unbelievable photograph. I think it is just from a sit-in in Jackson, Mississippi,
Yes.
when Joan Trump Hall and someone is sitting in, I think from Tougaloo, or to sit in Nashville, another young white student, a chain student at Fisk named Paul LaPrade is sitting there, and these white men come up and pull him off the lunch counter stool and just beat him, just hit him over and over again, and they just sort of catch his head, but he never struck back. And I think that was part of the discipline that people really believed, they really wanted to make this effort succeed. And I think that's why we succeeded, because you saw the image, this unbelievable image of these well-dressed college students sitting in an orderly, peaceful, non-violent fashion. On many occasions, they were just looking straight ahead, waiting to be served, maybe reading a book, working on a paper, and then someone would come up, spit on them, put a lighted cigarette out in their hair, or down their backs, or pour hot water, hot coffee on them. And I think that was the contrast, and that, I think, what changed things and appealed to the conscience of the American people.